Welcome back to weekly Tao explorations. My name is Courtney Rose.
I'm Eric Osborne.
And today we're exploring verse 15 of the Tao Te Ching. Hope you stick around and enjoy it along with us. All right, let's go. The ancient adepts of the Tao were subtle and flexible, profound and comprehensive. Their minds were too deep to be fathomed. Because they are unfathomable, one can only describe them vaguely by their appearance. Hesitant like one wading in a stream in winter, timid like one afraid of his neighbors on all sides, cautious and courteous like a guest, yielding like ice on the point of melting. Simple like uncarved block, hollow like a cave, confused like a muddy pool. And yet, who else could quietly and gradually evolve from the muddy to the clear? Who else could slowly but steadily move from the inert to the living? He who keeps the Tao does not want to be full, but precisely because he is never full, he can always remain like a hidden sprout and does not rush to early ripening. What are your initial takeaways?
The hidden sprout. Takeaways. Wow. Well, it's interesting that this one, last time I said that it's 81 verses that talk to the same thing, and it's obviously not completely true because this is speaking to the practitioners of the Tao. And what initially comes up for me is this conundrum that I've been talking about in leadership, how there, if I'm hearing how the Tao describes it, then like the one who follows the Tao seems as one who is confused, seems as one who is afraid of their neighbor on all sides, seems as one who is like crossing a frozen stream, which is like slow and trepidatious and quick, not causing any kind of upset. And I feel like that's what I have been trying to practice in a lot of ways for a few years now, really intentionally. And that's so much of what comes out of my work with the mushroom is this realization that I don't know what's going on, like it's unfolding in front of me in real time. And in any kind of leadership role, that hesitancy, that not knowingness seems to create confusion and uncertainty. And now there is the portion there at the end where it talks about who else could turn muddy water to clear or become, let it settle. And so there is, as always, there is this paradox of, is it speaking to like where I feel like I've actually come to recently of being like, oh, now I know that I have to be decisive, because even the appearance of indecisiveness creates uncertainty in those who are looking for leadership. And this, being a leader without trying to lead, it's something that I have been trying to really internalize and embody, and it is a very challenging task. So this speaks to me. I have considered myself a practitioner of the Tao, and I have embraced that I don't know-ness. So yeah, I don't know. Now I'm even more confused than I was when I...
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, because it does seem to majoritively be talking about this virtue of not knowing. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it is hinting at steadiness and the knowing that there's always, like the Tao is infinite. What does it say exactly? Like
I
this.
don't know. You're hogging all the translations over there. Yeah. All three of them. I want the big one. Can I see the big one?
There's another one.
Can I see the big
Oh, yeah,
one?
I do have all.
You got all three.
Yeah, actually, I really like this one, the Stephen Mitchell one.
This is not Stephen Mitchell.
Oh, I thought that was Stephen
No.
Mitchell. Oh. Is this one Stephen Mitchell?
No. We don't have Stephen Mitchell down here.
What in the world? Okay. It is speaking to this constant stream of knowing, though, throughout this.
Straightforward like uncarved wood, open like a broad valley, confusing as a muddy river. Stillness will make the confusion clear. From stillness, life can stir afresh and reemerge. That's where I feel like I'm at here lately. Those who follow the ancient Tao in this way do not seek completion. And because they do not seek completion, they can maintain themselves and do not need to be replaced.
Yeah, and that's the differentiating part for me. In the, let's say, leader, so to speak, practitioner that has the humbleness of not knowing whilst still being steady, like the confident, powerful, capable leader has both of those qualities, whereas the one that's like chaotic and hard to follow, hard to understand, is just leaning entirely into the not knowingness and not so much also holding the infinite flow of steadiness.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know how we're going to get there, but I know we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This image of the 8 immortals.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's one guy that's got a donkey walking on water beside the boat. Just I don't know if how well it can be seen. It's interesting image there. Yeah, I'm curious for our audience. This one's a challenging one, honestly, because it, like the last one and the ones where we talk about the Tao embodying paradox is a lot easier to reconcile in our minds than a person embodying paradox, right? Because we see a person and there's a concreteness just in that. Whereas when we're talking about the nameless Tao, it is visible and invisible. It's like, okay, that makes sense. That can make sense, make more sense. But when you talk about a person that is embodying this confusion as a muddy river and straightforwardness like an uncarved block, it's more challenging to sit with, and really, like, I don't think when we talk about leadership, I don't very often think in terms of the leader out there as much as I think of the leader in here, of us all being our own leader. And that's really what my hope is in the work that I do, is to try to embody leadership within myself that can then be internalized by others. But that's not what most people are looking for. Most people are looking for someone to tell them the way. That's why religions have been formed, because, even Jesus came and said, like, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And yet the overwhelming masses are looking for heaven.
Oh, yes, that makes so much sense. We'll follow you.
Yes, we'll follow. Great. Then you should just keep showing us.
It's that, yeah, it is so, it requires, like, I want to say so much courage, strength, clarity to own our own experience in life and to navigate that not knowingness while knowing. It is, it's like so incredibly challenging. It's like in the last episode we were talking about in chapter 14, and me integrating a little piece of the last ceremony this past weekend. That's where I'm at. It's very scary feeling in a way to let go of not having the answers and still trust this guidance that's coming through me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear in this verse, I hear a lot of the mistakes that I've made in the last couple of years, honestly. Things that we've been talking about directly lately, where me not knowing how we're going to get there, but knowing where we're going. And instead of just like saying that and being like, I don't know how we're going to get there. You help me figure it out. You show me how we're going to get there. And the people that want to go there, like, they don't know how we're going to get there, and they don't know that we're actually going to get there. Right? There is such, and I'm not like, this is not a critique of anybody else, but there is a certain reality that we all have to accept in our lives and ourselves. So like maybe within your life, audience member listening to this, maybe there's a place, there's a goal or a desire that you just know you're going to get there, but you don't know how. And then there are other places where you want to go, you don't know that you're going to get there, and you don't know how, but you want to get there. And so you're looking for someone to help you get there. And I think that I'd like to find a place in my life where that's the case as well. Maybe that's why I have valued the Kabbalistic teachings so much, because there are certain aspects of life that I definitely want to achieve, but I don't know how to, and I don't have that overwhelming like built-in confidence. Like, I have a built-in confidence that plant medicine, psilocybin mushrooms in particular, like I've been saying for many, many years, that this is the future of spirituality. And I know that because I can look and see that it's our past. It is long-standing throughout traditions around the world. In Taoism, it's found in Christianity and Judaism, in cave walls and shamanism. Like, working with these sacred mushrooms is the origin of the religious experience. There are those that will debate that. To me, it's not debatable. That is too obvious through religious art, through cave paintings, through what we're seeing now with research and how the benefits of psilocybin, the psychological benefits are an offshoot of the spiritual experience, the mystical experience. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the origin of the mystical experience and where religion came from. So that tells me that it's also where religious practice, spiritual practice is going. We just took a little detour, as we often do. We get lost so we can find ourselves. But when it comes to things like financial security, that's not something that I can look historically and say, I know this is where things are going, because for any number of reasons. And so Kabbalah has been a teaching and a practice where I can look at someone else who says, no, our birthright is abundance, right? And in that teaching, it also says in a lot of ways, like, there are some, like, we're going to get there this way, like there are principles and practices, but in a lot of ways, they are also kind of like touching with the intangible, like the expanding of the vessel, the principle of expanding the vessel, right? I never would have thought that embracing pain and the discomfort is the access point to the higher self. Like that's how I become, even though it makes total sense now in retrospect, and it might make total sense to someone listening to this who says, oh yeah, wow, okay, there are, countless images of Jesus, Buddha, with mushrooms. Mushrooms are depicted in cave walls. It makes sense what he's saying now. So I've been able to kind of point that direction because I have, I've just known this, and then I fill in the gaps. It's kind of like when you have a knowing that something's going to happen. It's like Steve Jobs had this address that he gave to Harvard, I think, students, or Yale, I forget. It was a commencatory speech, and he said in there that you connect the dots looking back in your life, right? So when you have a goal, a determined goal that I'm going to achieve this, I am going for this, then like when you get there, you look back in your life, you're like, oh wow, all these synchronicities happened that led the way. And I didn't know how I was going to get there, but because I knew how I was going to get there, it's in retrospect, it seemed to fill in. Mm-hmm. And that's how I am understanding these teachings of Kabbalah, and I'm experiencing it now. It's like, oh, if I can apply these principles, then when I get to the thing to that desired endpoint, I'll look back and see how all of that came together through the guidance of someone else. So I'm not sure if that makes sense. Well, it does to me. Hopefully it does to some of y'all out there.
Well, what is standing out for me as you're sharing your experience and your perspective related to this verse is how this verse is speaking to the Tao practitioner and the great Tao practitioners throughout time have been the humble type that are, cautious and also steady and leaving room in their vessel is what I'm hearing to be like constantly nourished. It's really speaking to that we can be both. We can be a leader and a follower. Mm-hmm. And both are very important roles to have. Like you touched on leadership, and when you're speaking to leader, you're really speaking to the leader in all of us. And yes, and I do think there's a really powerful conversation to be had around the concept of leader and where we're at in time now. I see a lot of people cringe at that term, leader, seeing it as like a bad thing, especially when we're self-identifying as a leader. That it is a big responsibility, and there's a time and a place for each of us to be leaders in different ways, and there's a time and a place for each of us to be followers, conscious followers, and just valuing both.
I mean, you can't
roles.
be an effective leader if you're not a follower. You can't be an effective teacher if you're not a student. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is maybe some of my problems in the past. There have definitely been times when I've felt like I didn't need anyone else in terms of guidance. Mm-hmm. And in more and more recent years, that recognition that, I don't have it figured out. Some stuff I do, but a lot of stuff I don't. Mm-hmm. How about you? So. Where are you a leader? Where are you a follower? And both of those are great. Mm-hmm. And they can shift in ratio as time goes on. Yeah,
it's the conscious part, like conscious leader, conscious follower, like the intention to be more conscientious about how we're doing both.
That's another thing too. I didn't think about that, but when you said intention and intentionality, when you think about the description of someone crossing a stream, a frozen stream, right? Like your intentionality, your awareness there are your intention is more honed in and directed, and your awareness is more open and expanded.
Way to look at it.
Similar to going into a mushroom experience. That's same way, man. When I go into mushrooms, like as many times as I've been there, and that's one of the ways that you can tell someone's level of experience and skill in the mushroom space. Someone who doesn't have as much experience very often goes in like, I got this. I know what's going to happen. I know how to take mushrooms.
It's going to be great.
And then someone that knows mushrooms is like, let's
exactly like
let's
this
just ease our way in here because they have no idea what's coming.
I mean, that was my first, when I read this, that was my first thought was, well, this sounds like a space holder who's really experienced. So, yeah, would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And we have a new learning opportunity with Sanctuary. It's called My Mushroom Map. It's a really awesome 6-part series where we talk about our right to commune with the mushroom, legality, just the basic ins and outs of religious freedom. And we talk about preparation and integration for a ceremony, maybe a little bit different than you hear in other places. And of course, the supernatural, mystical, mysterious aspects of ceremony. So we'd love to have you join us for that. It's donation-based, sliding scale access. And I know you'll get a lot out of it. So till then,
thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next week.